I didn't realize when I came here, or at least when I was rashly said I would speak here, that the text for the title of tonight's entertainment, "The Ink Runs Dry," came from the lyrics, some of you probably know this, the lyrics to a song by Pistol Grip that came out in 2004. But I thought I might refresh the memories of those who know it, or inform those who don't know it. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. But I just wanted to go over some of the lyrics with you. What are you going to do when the ink runs dry? What are you going to do when there is nothing left to write? There's always, heroes always fall, and idols always fade. A new face, a new day. Well, there are quite a few writers here tonight, not just the ones who are on tonight's bill. So I don't think we really want to get into writers' performance anxiety. That would really be an overshare, a bit too much information. So instead of talking about my performance anxiety or that of anybody else here, I thought I would take you all back to the 1930s in Spain, the setting for my book, my most recent book, Hotel Florida, and talk about some of the writers in that book who came to Spain in the 1930s because they were afraid their ink was running dry. And they wanted to cover what was then the big, big story of the decade, the Spanish Civil War, in which the socialist government of Spain was under attack by the fascist guerrillas under Francisco Franco. So they all came to Spain hoping to recover their mojo, restart their careers, and some of them did. But those who were the new face, the new day, were not the writers. They were the photographers and the filmmakers, the people who came to cover this war with new technology, new lightweight cameras, very compact cameras that you could carry onto the battlefield for the very first time in human history. Very fast film that you could use to capture action, which you could never have done before. They had all of these new things, and they also had a new medium. They had newsreels that were suddenly being shown in feature film theaters all across every country. And they had news magazines that were photo news magazines laid out with text and lots of pictures. Now, arguably the most famous of these photojournalists were a young pair, Robert Capa and Gerda Taro. They were in their 20s. They were partners in, not only professionally, but they were partners in love. And they came to Spain not only to reinvent the whole method of journalism, but they also came to Spain to reinvent themselves, something they had started to do a few months before they arrived in Paris. They were young emigres from fascist countries with names. They were Goethe Pohorila and Andre Erno Friedman. And in Paris, where they were penniless and living in garrets and unable to find any work, Gerda came up with a brilliant plan, which was that they would invent a world-famous photographer named Robert Capa. She would call photo editors and photo magazines and agents and say that she had photographs by this wonderful, wonderful photographer. They would cost 3 times the going rate because he was so famous. And when they would say, well, we would like to meet Mr. Capa in order to find out whether or not his work is any good and we want to talk to him about it. She would say, oh, I can't possibly get you an appointment with him. He's run off to the Côte d'Azur with an actress again. And somehow this ploy worked. at least it worked with the editor of one of the most famous photo magazines in the world, Vaill. The man's name was Vaill, and he hired them to go to cover the war in Spain. Well, things didn't quite work out the way they expected. They went down there looking not only for fame for themselves, but also to glorify the anti-fascist cause. And they had some surprises along the way. The first thing that happened was there was a plane crash. The plane that they were in crashed as it was landing. They were unhurt, but Vaill, who was in the plane with them, broke his arm and had to go to the hospital. Then they couldn't get to the front lines because, among other things, they couldn't get a pass. Nobody would let them close at first. Then, if they got close, they discovered there wasn't all that much fighting going on at the beginning of the war. And if they got close and there was fighting, sometimes there were equipment malfunctions. At one point, Capa, who was going out on patrol with a group of militiamen near Madrid, suddenly firing broke out. The militiamen and Capa all hunkered down in the underbrush. When the firing stopped, they got up and were going to go on. And Capa said, "Excuse me, could you wait for 5 minutes, please? I have to change my trousers. My guts aren't as brave as my camera." Like other photojournalists, they relied a lot on staged shoots because of all of these problems that they had had. And one day, they were in the south of Spain near Cordoba, and they were staging exactly such a shoot. They talked the militiamen that they were with into play acting an attack for them. They would run up and down the hill, they would fire their guns, they would jump over a trench, they would lie down and pretend to be dead. And in the course of this fooling around, one of the militiamen was shot and killed. And Capa never, ever forgave himself for this. Both of them actually were haunted by what had happened, and they now insisted on putting themselves in the front lines, in the midst of battle wherever possible. Capa in Bilbao hunkered down in foxholes with soldiers, and you could see the kinds of photographs he took from there. There was grenades are flying, planes are flying overhead. He was also in Bilbao, in the middle of a public square with everybody running for cover as the air raid sirens are wailing, and the bombs are starting to fall. And you realize as you look at the pictures, Capa was standing there, right there. The bombs are falling all around him. Guerra went to the morgue in Valencia to take photographs of air raid victims. The photographs that you see are horrific. They are even more horrific when you realize that she is standing in a puddle of blood taking them. The two of them in a retreat in the Sierra de Guadarrama were scrambling down a hill. Bullets are flying again, and one of them is pinging off of Tara's camera, and she says, "Better there than in my heart." Well, it was in the course of all of this action that Capa honed his famous dictum, "If your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough." And it was a motto that got both of them, and in particular Gerda, into trouble is maybe the wrong word. She was gored to death by a tank in the Battle of Brunete. And when she died, her body was taken to Paris. Tens of thousands of people followed her corpse and her coffin to the cemetery at Père Lachaise. She had found the fame that she was looking for, but she had lost her life. Capa was desolate. When he could finally bring himself to come back to Spain, he was even more reckless than ever. hurling himself into situations where he was always at risk. There are photographs that he took climbing up a staircase in a building, being liberated by the loyalists, and you realize there are sharpshooters around every corner because he all of a sudden takes a photograph of one of them. He takes pictures of a battle at the Rio Segre, and you can see not only the people doubling over as the bullets strike them, but you can see the stone building towards which Kappa is clearly running suddenly blow up as a shell hits it. This is the kind of journalism that got Kappa enormous worldwide fame. It's the kind of thing that he exhibited in the photographs that he took at D-Day, which were also world famous. And it is something that certainly made him, catapulted him into the front rank of all photographers. What happened then to him? Did he get to live to see the ink run dry? Or did he find himself with, I think the song goes, past your prime with a trophy case full of another lifetime? And the answer is that he didn't. He didn't because he never had to worry about any of these things. In Indochina in 1954, out taking photographs, he stepped on a landmine and was killed. It's hard to decide whether that was a better choice. Would he have been happier had he lived to let the ink run dry? Or as he said, a war photographer's greatest wish is for unemployment. It's not a wish he ever got to have. I don't know if it's a choice any of us would make, but thank you.